couple things that you might not have considered about Ukraine that you really need to consider in the conversation that's going on right now. Number one, Ukraine is not a bastion of freedom and democracy. In fact, in the last few weeks, opposition leaders have been arrested. 3 different opposition TV stations have been shut down. There is a lot going on there that does not represent democracy. But there are a couple of factors that you need to know about when it comes to the United States and our involvement in Ukraine. And the first of those goes back to 2014. Consider the fact that the last time that Ukraine was actually a democracy was when the United States got involved after the democratic election of Ukraine's president. The United States helped to foment a color revolution in order to overthrow the democratically elected leadership of Ukraine. And instead, the United States, under the Obama administration, installed a puppet leader who would represent the West. By the way, there are recordings of Victoria Nuland, U.S. President Barack Obama's central agent overseeing that coup, at least during the month of February 2014 when it climaxed, and she was crucial not only in overthrowing the existing Ukrainian government, but in selecting and installing its rabidly anti-Russian replacement. Victoria Nuland was caught on recordings talking about overthrowing the government and deciding which leader would take over instead of Yanukovych. This is all fact and it's all history. The second issue is the Minsk agreements. In 2014 and 2015, there were agreements between Russia and Ukraine about what to do about this Donbas region. That's the area of Ukraine that's been in the news a lot in the last couple of days. The Minsk II agreement signed in 2015 agreed that the Donbas region would be returned to Kiev's control while ensuring the safety and the rights of the area's citizens, as many as 800,000 people, by the way, of whom many have received Russian passports, about 20 to 40% of that population. But here's the problem here. Ukraine never bothered to actually implement the Minsk II agreements. And in fact, it was the United States, once again, that told the government of Kiev to just ignore those Minsk II agreements and not to worry about them. And then the third issue is the issue of NATO. According to some new cables from the CIA that have been released by WikiLeaks, we now know that the CIA knew that they were actually enticing the Russians to take some kind of military action by continually talking about Ukraine joining NATO. Ukraine and Georgia's NATO aspirations not only touch a raw nerve in Russia, they engender serious concerns about the consequences for stability in the region. Not only does Russia perceive encirclement and efforts to undermine Russia's influence in the region, but it also fears unpredictable and uncontrolled consequences which would seriously affect Russian security interests. In that eventuality, Russia would have to decide whether to intervene, a decision Russia does not want to have to face. And yet the CIA and the Pentagon and the United States government has continued to push the idea of Ukraine becoming a member of NATO. In fact, in the last few weeks, as the buildup to this Russian military action has been taking place, Russia has continually asked the United States and NATO for a guarantee that Ukraine would not be given membership. The United States, President Biden himself, has refused to do so. And so the bottom line here is that when you call for the United States to get involved in Ukraine, well, maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but for the last 10 years, the United States has been involved in Ukraine. And it's the U.S. involvement that seems to have gotten us to this point.